My book, The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success, is based on the idea that nature's intelligence is extremely successful. There's an ancient Vedic expression that you can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you can't count the number of apples in a seed, because in every seed is the promise of 1,000 forests. And as we become more and more familiar with the mechanics of creation in nature, which is so lavishly abundant and exuberant in its success, we see that reality has three levels of expression. Physical, as in this plant that I see, or a physical body, or the physical universe, which is solid and three-dimensional. That's one level of expression. The second level of expression is quantum mechanical, the level of information and energy. And today that's not so difficult to understand. All our technology is built on the idea that the universe is made up of information and energy. That's why I can speak to you on your cellular phone, or send you a fax message, or surf the information highway on the internet. So that's the second level, information and energy. And the third level is pre-quantum or virtual, which is where does this information and energy come from? So that if we want to reclassify nature or the universe, we say it has a material expression, it has a quantum or information and energy level of expression, and then it has a virtual expression, which is pre-quantum. And that is the level of intelligence. Intelligence meaning information which is self-organized. So how does that work in nature? In nature it works through certain principles. First of all, at the deepest level of nature, at the virtual level, everything is possible, because it is the level of potentiality, and you can't quantify potentiality. That's why it's potentiality. It's a field of infinite possibilities. So that's the first law of success, that your consciousness, which is the ultimate ground of all creation, because as you go deep inside your own level of awareness, you come to the ground of your own being, and at that level is an intelligence which is orchestrating the activity of your mind and body. It's also orchestrating the activity of other minds and bodies and everything else. And that's the law of pure potentiality. The second law is the law of giving, which means it circulates through giving. The ancient Indian expression, Purna Midha Purna Midham. If you take away infinity from infinity, what remains is still infinity. Infinity doesn't get diminished by subtraction or division or whatever. So the more you give, the more you shall receive, an ancient kind of pearl of wisdom. And so on, the law of karma, the law of least effort, the law of detachment, the law of dharma, which are basically ancient expressions, but they find new meaning when understood in terms of how nature's intelligence transforms itself into fields of energy and information, which then transform themselves into matter.
Okay, this book was published 2 years back.
About 2 years, yeah.
About 2 years. But why was the need for you to translate it into Hindi now?
Well, I think that happened in a way. In the answer to your question is that the book has been around for now 2 years and a half. It's been published in 30 languages, including Hebrew and Arabic and Korean and Chinese and name it. So I was actually surprised that I was never approached by an Indian publisher to have it published in Hindi. Now, my publishers and myself included, we don't actively seek translations, they come to us. And so it happened that they came to us now and we said yes. So there was no kind of plan behind it.
Okay, who is Deepak Chopra really? A spiritual guru or just a consultant?
Deepak Chopra is an explorer in the world of consciousness. Just like you have explorers who want to climb Everest, or explorers who navigate the seas of space, like John Glenn, or you have explorers who go and explore the Amazon. I explore the world of consciousness, and my tools happen to be the ancient wisdom traditions, particularly that of India, but also all the other perennial philosophies of the world.
Okay, how easy or how difficult was it in the West to establish yourself, considering the stereotypes that surround gurus, spiritual gurus from India?
There are stereotypes always, and I had to encounter that, and it annoyed me in the beginning, but I realized afterwards that if I let it I realized that if I let it annoy me, that I wouldn't get very far. So at some point in my career, I decided that I was going to treat my critics as my best friends, be immune to their criticism, and yet be responsive to feedback. So I've basically managed to do that. I'm at the moment in a place where I feel quite independent of the good or bad opinion of the critics, and at the same time I do respond to feedback, both negative and positive. So I don't find it a challenge anymore. It was at one point.
You offer cure solutions or just plain relief?
I actually don't offer solutions or relief. I offer a journey for those who are willing to start it. I offer confusion for those who are willing to embrace it. I offer uncertainty for those who recognize that there is wisdom in uncertainty. Václav Havel, the founding president of Czechoslovakia, said something very profound, and I live by it in his inaugural speech. He said, "Seek the company of those who are looking for the truth and run away from those who have found it." So I'd like to say I haven't yet found it, and I'm exploring it, and I enjoy doing what I do. I enjoy sharing the journey with those who want to share it with me. And for the skeptics and cynics, I say, you don't have to come along.
Okay, in India you are more known as a celebrity spiritual guru associated with Hollywood and top-notch people. How far is it true?
The celebrity label has come about as a result of the media's fascination with celebrities. I would say that if you count the number of celebrities, even though the number may be quite large, if you look at them as a percentage of the people that I interact with, then it's less than 1%, if that. So yes, I have a lot of celebrities who come to my workshops and seminars, but I also have politicians. I have heads of state. I have people who are business CEOs. And if you count all of them, the rich and the famous, they still would be less than 1%. The majority of people that I interact with are people who are not famous, who are not wealthy, who are people just like you and me.
Okay, you making a film on mythology. Could you please tell us something about that?
There was a series of films made on mythology several years ago by a person called Joseph Campbell. And Joseph Campbell did an extraordinary job, but he mainly dealt with Greek mythology. And as I looked at all the information available in mythology in the West today, it's still not good, although, as I said, Joseph Campbell did a great job. Particularly if you look at the insights that we have from Indian mythology, and you begin to recognize how practical the uses of mythology are. The word myth is related to the word mother in English, but it's also connected to the words mater in Latin, matrix in Greek, matter, time, measurement, music, meter. Mythology is literally the womb of creation. It's the understanding of what inspires us, what lifts us from the ordinary world into a world of magic and creativity. Without mythology, we have no imagination. So mythology offers the raw materials of our imagination, and therefore is very essential to the creative process. And I want to make a film that takes Indian mythology, because it is so deep as compared to, say, Egyptian. I just did, part of the movie does deal with Egyptian and Greek mythology as preludes to the world of Indian mythology. And if you look at Indian mythical figures, whether it's Ganesh or Mahalakshmi or Saraswati or Shiva or Krishna or any of the great figures in the Puranas, they represent archetypal energies that literally stoke the furnace of life in our souls. And one of the things society runs the risk of, and happens very frequently, particularly in postmodern societies, it's happening all over the world right now, is having lost mythology, we become in a way spiritually and creatively bankrupt. And the anomalies of that are street gangs, because gangs offer mythology. You know, a gang leader has imagination, has leadership skills, has initiation rites, has ritual, which are the trappings of a genuine mythology, but they have a real function in life. Ritual traps your attention, helps you focus your attention and your intention on a certain phenomenon, helps you actualize something that lives in the imaginary world into the physical world. So my film, which is called Mythos, the Crucible of Creation, is going to take Indian mythology and make it very relevant to our contemporary issues, not only in the East, but in the West. That's the idea.
Okay, finally, how different is your philosophy from other leaders, other spiritual leaders or gurus that have stopped this world?
I think there's nothing really new in what I say. There's nothing really new anywhere in the world. We all kind of recycle the same information that's always existed. And you can't improvise on wisdom. You can improvise on knowledge, perhaps you can give it a new twist, but you run the risk of destroying wisdom when you improvise. So I would say that my writings are based on the perennial philosophies of humanity, particularly as they were born in the great Vedic tradition of India. The only difference is that because I have a background in science, particularly in the neurosciences and in physics, I can articulate them in an expression which makes sense to both the scientific mind and also the mind that is no longer satisfied with the traditional explanations. You know, the modern person doesn't want to think of God as in the West as a dead white male in the sky, and also is turned off by idols that have no meaning or significance. So I'm able to articulate this wisdom in a contemporary framework, but it's not any different. I am doing 3 books this year in 1999. One is called Everyday Immortality, which is a basic book of explanation of Vedic sutras. I'm doing a book inspired by Einstein's phrase, I want to know how God thinks, everything else is a detail. And I'm doing a book of fiction called Lords of Light, which is based on the Jewish Kabbalah and is on the nature of evil. That book has been bought by London Films for a feature film, and it's going to be soon starting. The production is starting in Israel and Jerusalem in a couple of months. And then I have some music projects that I'm doing with the ancient love poems of Rumi from Farsi that we have translated into English. So a lot of little things like that.
Okay, a lot of little things. Final question, right? You write books, you are into music, you deliver lectures, into films. How do you manage it?
By not thinking about it. I manage it by not planning. I'll try to be as spontaneous as possible. And I do only things that inspire me, that make me feel passionate. And if I feel passion for something, then I do it, and then it's no longer work.